Mental health related issues kill people. And within the manga of Berserk and Goodnight PunPun, mental illness and mental struggle is really one of the focal points in both mangas. In the seinen genre, they obviously tackle mature subjects such as murder, trouble with relationships, or even mental problems. And in this video, we will be taking a look at Guts and PunPun and the problems that they faced that led to their mental struggle and how they actually overcame it. Well, at least how they tried to. First off, I want to take a look at Guts in this instance. I usually talk about PunPun first, but I kind of want to get Guts' perspective in the beginning. Guts, if you haven't read the manga already, is a boy who was born from a woman who was essentially dead, but was still birthed at the end of the day. And he had no father nor mother to take care of him. And that's where we see him grow up with life full of struggle. From the minute that he was born all the way to the latest chapter and everything in between. Guts really had it hard the most within the manga. Losing his best friend, having his girlfriend get assaulted, and losing his friends on the way to try to become a better person. And by no means am I trying to diagnose Guts in this case, but we see him time and time again have anger issues, PTSD, trust issues, and throughout some chapters in the middle of the manga, he has a few panic attacks. Well, obviously, the protagonist in each and every series has to go through their individual adversities, but that's usually set for their antagonist. Usually an antagonist is in the way of a protagonist getting in between his goals. But in Berserk, Guts seems to get in the way of himself. We see constantly him battling battles that he feels like he needs to do alone. And that's kind of scary looking at it from a reader's perspective. We're seeing a protagonist box himself in a corner, not trusting nobody. And that kind of leads to a revenge standpoint that he takes, that we see during the whole manga. I mean, from a little age, all he's known is revenge and to retaliate against others, and that's pushed his mental health way down the drain, all the way to the point where he can't really trust anybody. It's hard regaining and rebuilding any sort of friendship from the beginning all the way into his adult life. And what made his mental health struggle even more? Well, I would suggest Casca's assault. I mean, we've seen after the whole eclipse, he was running off into a forest because he doesn't want to think of any of that. Casca getting assaulted or his friends getting murdered in front of him. That all took a toll because when he started regaining all these friendships that he never had as a child, it all got taken away from him in an instant. We see after the eclipse, he keeps running into a forest in a rate that it seems like he'll keep going on forever. And that's when Skull Knight stops him, of course. But at that point in time, we see Guts' health just decline in a rapid rate, all because of Griffith. Guts was actually opening up to the Band of Hawks with the problems that he had and open up to Casca and Griffith. Those were the two people he trusted the most on the battlefield and outside during Midland. He never thought once of doing anything bad to Casca or Griffith up until this point. He was just a mercenary abiding by the leader. And that's until Griffith wanted more. He wanted more power. So what did he do? He finally did it. He sacrificed almost all of his comrades to get to his goal. And Guts had to pay the price for that. And especially his mental health. And not to mention that he was assaulted before by Donovan. All of these traumatic events that Guts experiences builds up and makes him have a disorder known as PTSD. When Guts develops this, it feels like a non-stop ending to his suffering. He keeps having to relive moments that he doesn't want to be a part of, at least doesn't want to be reliving it again. And this kind of hurts the readers reading the manga Berserk because we keep seeing the protagonist suffer in silence. He never really opens up to anyone. He used to open up to Casca in the Golden Age arc, but now that she lost her memories, Guts can't really say much to her as she won't remember, and Casca's even scared of Guts, so it makes no use for Guts to share any important information. So by Guts struggling, we never really see him open up as often. Even though he has new crew members, luckily, we don't see him much ever open up about his mental struggles, which everyone should do. So by Guts not doing this, it kind of weighs down on him more and more. Now that we're around chapter 377, where Griffith takes Casca again, we see another mental struggle for Guts. We see a blockade in his mind where he feels like he doesn't do enough for Casca, or at least enough to save her from Griffith. The mental struggle is hard for Guts, but in hopes that the manga continues, we hope that he pushes through this and becomes the best version of himself. Alright, next up we have is PunPun, and it honestly doesn't get any better. At least, I think it just gets worse. PunPun, majority of the manga, deals with major depression throughout the whole series. As a kid, PunPun deals with domestic abuse at home and his mother being in the hospital while his dad leaves. All he really has is his uncle Yuchi and his girlfriend Aiko. During middle school, PunPun never really talked to anyone and was really introverted. He only talked to those that he really knew, and even then he talked for a little bit. A lot of readers reading Goodnight PunPun thought that PunPun's suppression would be much more simpler and reduced, if not gone, by the time Ayuko and him fled to Kagoshima, but it ended up getting worse, of course, when PunPun didn't go through with the plan. We see him in the living room and in his bed, cuddled up, crying by himself, while his mom and dad are split up and his uncle Yuchi has a crazy girlfriend. Not to mention that PunPun deals with a complex PTSD disorder only because of how much stress that he puts on himself for not saying yes to Ayuko when fleeing to Kagoshima. He keeps reliving this instance in his head, and it kind of gets more and more depressing as he goes into this spiral. Let alone when he meets Ayuko again in chapter 100, it gets worse and worse as he actually confronts his PTSD and finally says yes to Ayuko and fleeing off to Kagoshima. But then again, everything just got a whole lot worse. He also deals with anxiety issues as he's too scared to confront emotions head on. We see him have a hard time struggling when talking to Ayuko or Sachi, and that's the case because he's obviously introverted, and by him trying to express his emotions and relieve some of that stress, it kind of causes his anxiety to develop, only because it's very hard expressing his emotions as an introvert. Next up, I do believe he has avoidant personality disorder, and what that is a condition that causes extreme shyness and fear of rejection. We see him throughout life kind of shun away in his room or in his apartment, only because he doesn't want to make his feelings known because he feels less of a person. He doesn't feel equal to those around him, but rather he feels at a disadvantage in life. At a very early age, he struggled with his confidence, and what I believe that stemmed from was Ayuko getting rejected and him falling into a spiral along with his parents not being there for him. A broken household kind of goes a long way into influencing a child to becoming a full-fledged adult that makes his own conscious decisions. But by the time we see Sachi get introduced within this manga, we as readers kind of feel the need that PunPun has to open up at this point. And this is due to how extroverted Sachi is. And by Sachi hanging out with PunPun a lot, us readers kind of thought that PunPun was going to open up to her. And thankfully he did. We actually see more of a brighter side to PunPun when he wants to create this manga with Sachi, and at this point, readers think that PunPun has escaped any sort of mental struggle, and that his mental health might be on an incline starting from now. But of course, something has to hit the fan again, and that's when we find out that Sachi is pregnant, and that PunPun feels betrayed and doesn't want to stay around any longer. I honestly think that you can name 1,000 different disorders and illnesses that PunPun faces, but at the end of the day, we see him struggle throughout his life and he doesn't really recoup himself in any point at the end. I obviously found it disappointing that PunPun didn't go out of his way to seek any sort of help at the end or some sort of forgiveness from the families that he's hurt or people that he's hurt in his life. And that kind of bothers me in a sense that he's actually never reached out, nor has he really helped himself. and that's what hurts reading Goodnight PunPun. We rarely see PunPun help himself during any situation, and it's just a slow decline from chapter 1 all the way to the end. With Guts and PunPun sharing some of the mental struggles such as PTSD and depression, it comes down ultimately to how you can face it at hand. At times, we see PunPun fluster and falter, but catch himself in some points, then drop to a low point, whereas Guts keeps striving towards his next goal. Rather than seeking revenge on Griffith, he goes out his way to help Casca, which betters his mental health. While on one hand, Goodnight PunPun is finished and PunPun's story has ended, we still have to see Guts' story play out, and maybe at the end, he will find some sort of peace of mind. That's it for the video, guys. Make sure to join the Discord down below and subscribe to the channel. We're close to 1,000 subs, so it'd mean a lot. Peace.